Hello everyone, this is part 2 of my model Toyota Supra. In this episode, I'll be priming and painting my sanded model. I'll also be learning from a few mistakes I made. So first off, I have to wipe off the whole thing with isopropyl alcohol. This step is very important as removing all the dried paint and fingertip oil is the only thing making sure that the spray paint sticks to the plastic. I didn't do this step properly in a later clip and I ended up with peeling paint. Next up is the wheels. I'm gluing some barbecue sticks to the ends so I can paint them all around. The paint only needs to get to the tire area and doesn't have to cover 100% of everything on the back. As you can see, there are a few scratches from the rougher 200 grit sandpaper which I didn't fully sand out, but that's okay as the paint that's in those grooves will allow me to see exactly when I've fully sanded them later on. Of course, as with any first coat, it must always be a super light coat so it can bond correctly. If not, there will be a good chance that it'll peel and also crack, since the uneven drying areas will pull apart the paint and make tiny fractures. This has happened with me before. Next up, I'm sanding the primer with 320 grit sanding paper. This is to remove those deeper scratches, make sure everything's even, and give a good rough surface for the next layer to bond to. I'm using a small file to detail all the outlines, which I'll work on later, but it is important to outline as the details will slowly lose their marks as each layer of paint is put on. After fully sanding the entire thing, I'm able to see the primer that has filled up the deeper spots. Doing this 1 or 2 more times will make the model completely smooth. After that, I sprayed the first coat of orange. It needs 2 more as a primer will show through the first layer. Sadly, this is when I realized I didn't have enough paint to finish the back end, so I had to switch over to pink. In hindsight, a Fast and Furious style Supra wouldn't have been a bad idea. I then masked the lining so I can paint the windows. I used Plasti-Dip, which was a bad idea. I didn't have black spray paint on hand. Moving on to the wheels, I also primed them and painted them. I wanted to have the spokes match the body color, with Plasti-Dip as the tires. I found a bearing with a good radius to use as the outline and used it as a template to cut circles of masking tape. And here's my mistake. As I was cleaning up the edges, the Plasti-Dip began to peel, and well, that's what it's supposed to do, but after peeling, the paint underneath it also peeled. I realized that either I hadn't cleaned up the primer layer well enough, or I used too thick of a coat, or a combination of both. Anyways, I ended up peeling the whole thing to start over. Here I'm using a mini chisel to remove and detail the edges. It was a very easy process and it was very satisfying since the chisel was very sharp. This took me about an hour, but I don't really care. This time the paint actually looked good. I also tried to handle it much less to prevent oil marks. At this point I decided that I will use the primer itself as the window layer, as it was much simpler and looked decent in my opinion. With every layer of pink, the primer gets covered up, the surface gets smoother, and it looks well. The masking tape was outlined by a small knife in order to get sharp edges. This is important as not doing so could possibly peel the paint once you peel the tape. I'm now again outlining the tape, better safe than sorry. And surprisingly, in my opinion, turned out pretty well. And that's the end of this episode. Next time I'll be detailing the headlights and wheels, applying the coats of clear coat, and polishing the surface. Thank you all for watching.